Hello, Risky Business. I'm Brian McFarland, and I'm the Managing Director of our North American business at Turnkey. And I'm joined again with the CEO of Turnkey Consulting, Richard Hunt. Richard, how are you enjoying Risky Business 2023, and what stood out for you?
Sorry about that, guys. I think I had the stream on in the background, so it might have been a bit of an echo. Hi, Brian. Yeah, great to see you. Good morning over there. Good afternoon here, or almost good evening, actually.
It's actually good afternoon here. It's 1:15 in the afternoon. We've been sitting through a lot of sessions in our morning and early afternoon.
Yeah, no, it's been good. We've had a great day. We've had some fantastic contributions from customers and our partners. So I kicked the day off by sharing quite a personal story around how I started my career with a chicken business back when I was 12. So that was kind of fun. The guys asked me to share that with the audience. So we thought we'd do something different and talked a little bit about that as a kind of an origin story from Turnkey's perspective as much as anything else. We had a great session from Maersk this morning. So Jakob and Henrietta kicked us off with a session around how Maersk are using SAP's GRC risk management solution, and some really interesting insights into some of the benefits they're getting from that, some of the ways they're able to streamline some of their risk management processes using that. Elaine and Michael were talking from SAP's perspective about the new financial compliance management solution from SAP. So this is a kind of evolution of the SAP process controls tool, which is out there now as a cloud version. It's a relatively new product, but it's kind of gaining traction quite a lot. It still has been around for a couple of years now, and we've actually been co-developing that together with SAP over in Waldorf. So we've kind of had a lot of insight into what that solution's potential is and how it's evolving. And yeah, it was great to see a little bit more about it, to see the sort of roadmap for it, etc., and where that's going. Ilya and Samar, we're talking from L'Oreal's perspective around how they're using SAP's GRC solutions for an interesting use case around their RPA users. So their robotic process automation users, the kind of background users that they're using from a number of processes within the business. And they were getting additional control out of that, but also just sort of streamlining the provisioning process for that using SAP's GRC tools. So it's a very interesting use case, and I think a good reminder for customers that you don't have to just use these tools for things like SOX compliance or for the end user scenarios. You can also use them for some of the background users and to gain some additional control and efficiencies around some of those kind of processes. And then we had a few great partner sessions this afternoon as well. So we had some sessions from SailPoint, or a session from SailPoint, a session from Diligent. RevTrack and Onapsis did a session together around how they've integrated their solutions to kind of streamline the change control processes and add some really interesting controls into that. And then we had a customer case study from Security Bridge and Lonza. So one of our valued customers were talking together with Security Bridge around how they're leveraging that tool. So that was a really, really interesting set of customer use cases around some of the partner products that we're working with at Turnkey. So yeah, it's great, and it's been a real success again. We've had really, really interesting engagement from customers, lots of people participating in the sessions, and we can see the numbers attending, and there's a kind of great participation from customers. So it's great to see that. What about you, Brian? Did you get up early enough to see some of those?
I didn't. I wasn't up early enough to see your opening keynote, but I did catch probably the last 5 sessions or so. And I think first and foremost, I have to give a shout out to Dan McGran from RevTrack. As a Philadelphia native, I don't know if any of you, certainly some of the Europeans probably didn't notice this, but Dan was representing the city of Philadelphia by wearing his Philadelphia Phillies jersey for his session. So let's go Phils. Secondly, I really enjoyed, actually, I think it was the first or second session that I joined this morning with Paul Squires from SailPoint. And it really hit home when he led off with the linkage of identity governance, or actually the lack thereof, to the downfall of Arthur Andersen, Enron, WorldCom, and some others. So that really, really resonated. And speaking of SailPoint, shameless plug alert, Turnkey will be a proud sponsor of the SailPoint Navigate conference, which is taking place next week in Austin, Texas. So if you're planning to go to Navigate, please be sure to stop by the Turnkey booth. Richard, so I'm looking forward for us to being able to spend time in person. So Richard, as the CEO of Turnkey Consulting, you're obviously at the forefront of change in the risk, security, and cybersecurity arena. And I'm certain that our viewers want to hear some of your thought leadership. So what are some of the things on the horizon that our listeners should be thinking about or planning for?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I think what we're seeing and a lot at the moment is a kind of an acknowledgement from our customers that the threat landscape from a cybersecurity perspective has changed significantly over the last couple of years with the war in Ukraine and some of the kind of the sort of state-sponsored threat actors that are out there that have been out there all the time, really. But I think the challenge we're seeing now is that the acknowledgement we're seeing from customers now is that they really do need to do something about that from the perspective of protecting their systems, etc. So, of course, they've been doing things all along, but I think the acknowledgement that, for those that had buried their heads in the sand previously is out there now, and I think there's a universal understanding that these cybersecurity threats are genuine, and I think also there's a lot of really good work being done by ourselves, by Anapsys, by Security Bridge, and other vendors in that space around the threats to customers' key business applications as well. So I think what I'm seeing going forwards is that those kind of products and the kind of business case for them is going to start to be acknowledged more and more by customers, and that we're going to see sort of significant deployments of those next year. I read an interesting article recently around the S/4HANA migrations from an SAP perspective. We really are at a tipping point where over 50% of customers are now in their migrations or well into their migrations now to S/4HANA. So I think we're going to see more customers doing that, and I think it's important to remind customers that it's easy to make the same mistake twice around getting security wrong in those deployments. And we have seen customers who are still assuming that the standard roles in SAP and things like that can be deployed without needing to change them, or advisory companies telling them that's the case, and it really isn't. Like they need to do the same kind of work on their security in SAP S/4HANA as they had to for SAP. Otherwise, they're going to get audit points in the same way that a lot of companies have had big, costly remediation projects over the last few years. So I think kind of that's on the horizon for next year. Is I think more challenges around SAP security, getting that right. I think the other thing that is interesting is that from a cybersecurity perspective, we're absolutely seeing a lot of legislation backing up the kind of need to do this. So you've got the SEC regulations that are coming in on the 1st of December. You've got the FTC in the US customer level protections that already came in on the 9th of June. And I think that, those are mirroring legislation around the world that we've seen from a cybersecurity perspective. So the NIS2 directive in the EU is another one that has been out there for a little while now. And what these are doing are they're basically requiring additional accountability for cybersecurity. So, essentially, if you've had a breach, you're going to have to report it. I think it's you've got 4 days to report a material breach under the SEC regulations coming in December. And And I think what that does is it puts a little bit of legislative teeth behind the need to get cybersecurity right. And it puts a spotlight on those companies, from a legal perspective. If those companies that aren't doing the right thing are more likely to have a breach, and they are then going to legally need to report that breach and be open about it. So obviously, nobody wants that. It's going to affect share prices, etc. So I think that's something. I think responding to those new legislative requirements next year is something I'm expecting a lot of customers to do. And I think, to be honest, the risk management activities that we do as an organization overarch that. These are all responses to risks, and the risk of a cyber breach is another risk on the risk register. So I think kind of overall as well, we're seeing customers thinking differently about risk management and how they respond to things.
So it sounds like we've already got the framework for the agenda for Risky Business 2024 with the S4 migration success stories and winning in the era of cybersecurity legislative compliance. So we'll make sure that our marketing team's taking note to be able to get these things included in next year's agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to have another event. We've done this 3 years in a row now, and we started it in the pandemic. We had slightly smaller audiences last year, which is not surprising considering that everyone was pretty sick of being online last year. But what we found this year is actually that we've had a big, almost twice the audience we had last year again. So we're almost back to the same size audience, as we had during the pandemic, which for a virtual event is great, and it's fantastic for a company like us to be able to reach our global customer base in this way and get out there talking to customers and putting some of the great thought leadership and content we've got. So it's really nice to do that. So what are you seeing in the US market, Brian? You joined us at the beginning of this year, and you've really hit the ground running over the last sort of few months that you've been with us. What's your perspective over there?
Yeah, so this is my first risky business, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And as you mentioned, Richard, I joined Turnkey earlier this year with the aim of growing our business in the North American market. And I knew Turnkey for many years prior to actually joining Turnkey. And what I knew Turnkey for was SAP security. And that was because of my days in sort of the HR technology arena with SAP and SuccessFactors. And I think that when I came on board, I had this understanding that, or prior to me coming on board, that Turnkey was really known for their SAP security expertise. And what I found is that when I came into the US, first of all, customers knew who we were. And they had the same perception that I had, that we were solely SAP security experts. I obviously quickly learned that we do a whole bunch more than just SAP security. And I think that's one of the bigger challenges that we had when I came on board to Turnkey in the US, is to make the US market aware that we're so much more than just SAP security experts. And hopefully our US listeners today got a sense for our other capabilities. Things like GRC, and I don't mean just SAP GRC. We've got a fantastic partnership with Diligent, who's one of our sponsors today, supporting their Hybon GRC product. We have a blossoming strategic partnership with Sensual, who offer risk advisory and GRC technology services, giving us reach into other GRC solutions like Risk Connect, OnSpring, Archer. So GRC is definitely one of those capabilities that we're very strong in. Additionally, you heard today we've got growing capabilities in identity and access management, as well as privileged access management. And obviously, we have extensive capabilities in the SAP cybersecurity space, being able to support the two technology leaders in this space of Onapsis and SecurityBridge. So overall, I'm really excited about seeing the Turnkey brand continue to evolve and grow as our customers continue to realize the full extent that we can help minimize their risk.
Yeah, there's on the identity management side as well, for those who want to get up at 2 a.m. in Europe or stay up late over there in the US, there's a whole bunch of sessions coming in on those kind of topics for the APAC audience that we're doing. We're kicking off in a few hours. So have you got any kind of closing advice? Anything else that you're seeing in the US market, Brian?
Yeah, certainly. The U.S. market's a really interesting place right now. From a macroeconomic perspective, there's fears of recession. And we're seeing that that's led to curb spending this year and budgetary cuts for 2024. In fact, I literally read an article this morning that indicated that cybersecurity spending saw a 65% drop in growth during the 2022-2023 budget cycle. And unfortunately, the threat landscape doesn't hit the pause button during times of economic uncertainty, right? So essentially, the challenge that business leaders are faced with is to do more with less. So my advice to our listeners is to ensure that you have a risk maturity model in place to understand where you are today, and also understand the cost benefit associated with increasing your maturity so that you can really make informed business decisions regarding your security posture.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a bit in my session at the beginning, actually, this morning around the need to build a business case for any kind of investment in this space, and not to a lot of the kind of investments that customers make in cybersecurity initiatives don't have a financial return on the investment. Some of them do. So I think a lot of customers, like implementing identity management solutions because they have a return on the investment a lot of the time, and it's easy to demonstrate some of the admin savings you're going to make, some of the process efficiencies you achieve in the join and move a lever process. But I think sometimes people feel that they just need to ask for the money when it comes to cybersecurity initiatives that are about risk avoidance. But I think it's actually quite important, and this is where the convergence of risk management and cybersecurity comes into play. I think it's quite important to think about quantifying those risks that you're trying to avoid. Think about quantifying what would the financial impact be if that risk were to materialize. And if you can put that quantification behind it, and you can put a dollar value on those consequences, then you can start to work backwards from that to build your business case on the basis that that's the cost you're trying to avoid. And I know it's slightly less tangible than a direct return on that investment, but I think it's important when you're putting these kind of initiatives in front of stakeholders that you actually make an attempt to help them understand the cost benefit here, rather than just talking about the cost of this initiative and banging the drum around it. It's important to do.
You said it so much more eloquently than I did. Thank you for that, Richard. I've got to close this out here in a minute. Before I do that, do you have any closing remarks, Richard, or any additional advice for our viewers?
No, I mean, I think I just liked, I know you're going to come on to this, but I would like to thank the people that have participated over the last day or so, and those that are participating tomorrow, and just to thank people for joining us. Really, I think it's been great to have the audience on, and I'd just encourage you to keep going with the sessions. If you do want a late night tonight, there are some more coming up, and obviously there'll be recordings of a number of this, or all of the sessions available to people on demand for those that you couldn't attend. So I'll just flick forwards, because I know you wanted to make a special thanks to those that are participators today, Brian.
Yeah, certainly. You stole a little bit of my thunder, but having appreciation from more than one person certainly goes a long way, and lets our participants and speakers know how much we value them. So Maersk, Onapsis, SAP, SailPoint, L'Oreal, Diligent, RevTrack, Security Bridge, and Lanza. We want to thank you for taking the time away from your day job today to be able to share your story with us. It definitely means a lot, and I think that hopefully our listeners were able to walk away with some good tidbits from the sessions today. So while we're about to sign off on Risky Business for our European and North American listeners, Risky Business 2023 isn't over yet. With our Follow the Sun approach, in about 7 hours time, we'll be picking back up in Asia Pac. Some of you on the West Coast in the US may even be intrigued enough to dial back in. But thank you for participating in Risky Business 2023, and I hope you can walk away again feeling more equipped to make the world a safer place to do business. Thank you and goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone.